What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is something that has been long overdue, and I say that because I have had this in my possession for a little over a month and haven't made a video for you guys. And that's mostly because I've been taking it around to places, let people check it out, and then also enjoying it myself. So I thought this would be a good chance to give you guys a walk around. For those that aren't familiar with my channel, that's kind of how we got started, is just doing a walk around video like this, showing you guys bikes up close and personal. So we're going to do that in this video. But before we get into that, I want to invite you guys to ask any questions that you may have about this bike. Buell has given me complete freedom to speak about it openly and say anything good, bad, or in between. And then for things that I don't know personally, like there's some technical things, or there's always some kind of question just when you think you know everything that you get hit with and you realize you don't have the answer, I have access to the entire team at Buell to get you answers for whatever questions that you guys may have about this motorcycle. So I have this bike up on the lift. Nothing is wrong with it. I just felt like that was a better way to kind of show you guys. I'll put it up in the air in a little bit when we look at like the lower end stuff. I'll show you guys the bars and all that stuff. So really quickly, as far as what you're looking at, this is version 2. So the only things to my knowledge that will change on this bike, and yes, there are some frame changes that are happening and stuff, that is only cosmetic from what I'm told, so won't change the geometry. I just know they wanted to clean this section up in here and do a couple other things like that. The Olin suspension will not be on here. A lot of people were bummed to hear that. However, I knew for a good while now they're going to do Fox suspension on these things, which is still a really, really good high-end American-made suspension company. So I think for 99.9% of people, that's gonna be amazing. It's also better than what Buell's competitors are putting on their stock bike. So that's something to look forward to. You also will no longer get this perimeter disc. The way it's worded on the website kind of sounds like an option, but one of the good things about that is, although I don't hate the front wheel that's on this motorcycle, if you ever want to change it, you're kind of married to this wheel because of the way that this thing mounts. So you're going to get your standard dual disc front brake, which will allow you to run whatever wheel that you want. These are 17s on this bike, front and rear, and I think that has a lot to do with the handling of this machine. I can corner better on this bike than any cruiser that I've ever ridden in my entire life. So part of that, probably the 17s. Part of that's probably the suspension, the rider geometry. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, but I do believe that those 17-inch wheels have something to do with that. There's a reason guys out on the racetrack are running 17s on their bike. All right, so jumping back into the walk-around review, I'll show you guys the bars. I'm big on fit and finish, and this stuff feels pretty dang good. I feel like Harley is some of the best, at least on their cruiser style bikes. The new Nightster and Pan Am, probably not the greatest examples of that, but nonetheless, Buell seems to have some really nice ones. You have your standard high-low beam. Turn signals are on the same side, which is something that's a little different for most Harley guys. You have your horn button, your kill switch, and your start button. So everything is laid out pretty simple. No crazy bells and whistles, which I really like. This is all the stuff you need, nothing you don't, which I can appreciate. Obviously, the quad lock does not come on here. This is the only thing on this bike that doesn't come on it, obviously just for personal use. So I want to talk about the reservoirs really quickly because I've seen a lot of people online call them urine cups, and I feel like you're not wrong. These are easy to change, and you can pick up some like better looking ones, I guess, on Amazon for $5 to $10. But one thing that I like about this reservoir style system is, say compared to, here we'll use this KTM as a good example. So this reservoir is very nice looking, very well done to KTM. The problem, however, is that is all one piece. So if you break that, that's going to be super, super expensive. It's the same over here on my Dual Sport. You see this housing, so this is all one piece, which is nice and super clean, unless you end up dumping the bike, which is easy to do when you're loading it or what have you. So I do like that separate system on there. Let's talk about these gauges. So I'll turn it on really quickly. So this is kind of what you're looking at, and a lot of people say it's kind of low tech or whatever. That's fine. That's completely fine with me. If I didn't have this at all, with the exception of like my trip and stuff, I really don't care. I honestly don't even care about having a Speedo, because I can usually tell when I'm speeding, when I'm not. I get a feel for the RPMs based on the bike, but it is nice to have the little gauge here and stuff. One thing I do want to point out is you see here, average fuel 27.1. So far in my experience, that seems to be about accurate. And this is a 4-gallon tank. So if you're going to be doing longer rides, you're going to have a couple more stops. I'm used to that just because the way I've built my last few Harleys, they get terrible gas mileage as well. So I'm kind of used to it. Another thing I just noticed is these are the Roland Sands sector risers. These are not going to be the original equipment that comes on this bike. They're very similar looking. I believe they're going to be about the same height as well. It's just these are a really, really high-end, high-dollar riser, and cost-wise, I feel like there's no way to make that possible. But what I wanted to talk about was one thing that kind of bugs me is you see the key position here. It's just, for a guy with bigger hands, it's just not ideal getting in there. As you can see, like maybe I'm making it a bigger deal than it really is. Just a slight annoyance. And let's move into that. Let's talk about this fairing. So I do like that fairing. I think it looks really good. I've ridden this bike on interstate at some pretty high speeds, and it's doing little for wind deflection at those higher speeds. Memphis Shades is already working on a bigger fairing for this. We had one out in Sturgis. If you watch that video, you can see kind of towards the end, I think it was the bike that Bill Melvin, the CEO of Buell, was riding with that fairing that will be available. Also made in the USA, something big that Buell wants to push. This is the headlight that comes on this bike. To my knowledge, this is going to be what's going to be on the bike. Somebody said that they thought that it was a Daymaker. It's definitely not a Harley Davidson Daymaker. A lot of people griping about these turn signals. I'm with you. I completely agree. They look terrible. At the same time, I've literally never, ever, ever left the stock turn signals. So that's a very easy change. And to give you guys some insight, I still plan on buying one of these, so that kind of lets you know what my time with it has been like. And my plan for the turn signals, although possibly not legal, will be something like this. These are from a company called Source Off-Road, for anyone that wants to look. They are extremely low profile. They are very bright. You can get them in clear, you can get them in amber, you can get them in smoked, you can get them different bulb colors, all that good stuff. And I actually run the same turn signal setup on the rear of this bike. So that's my plans for at least the front turn signals on this bike. Just to let you know, I don't want to give away all the details of the things I plan to do to this bike, but that is one that I do plan to do. Not a whole lot of point in looking at the braking system here. A lot of people are familiar with the Buell perimeter brake, but like I said, it's probably not what's going to come on yours, so not spending a lot of time in that. This was very divisive, the aluminum radiator here. So I personally like it, but that's just because I also like race stuff. I don't have my Harley here, but I mean, as you can see, I like my KTM setup as like a factory bike, my dual sport setup like a Baja 1000 race bike. So I just really like the look of racy stuff. That raw aluminum to me says race and performance. I think black is probably what they're going to do, or they're going to have an option for the two. So I'm really hoping that I get the aluminum looking one. Another thing that people are kind of griping about were the mirrors. Again, I get it. I don't like any mirrors. I've never seen a mirror on a motorcycle that was functional, like something I could actually use, that I actually liked. So I'm with you. Those don't look great. It's easy, guys. It's super easy to put on some kind of different mirror and change the look of that bike. Seat, Saddlemen seat, spent probably about 350 miles in this seat at this point, not counting the rides that I did in Daytona, the rides that I did in Sturgis, but on this seat specifically that is coming on the bike, that is made by Saddlemen, extremely comfortable. It's significantly wider than most seats, but it's not been a hindrance in any kind of way. If anything, I guess it gives you a little more support, and it is super, super comfortable. We'll move to the back of the bike. Same story on the back, guys. If you want to do some kind of fancy integrated tail light system with the turn signals built in, all that, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing, probably realistically some kind of little Dyna tail light. That's going to be my go-to. I don't hate this tag mounting system. I have a big problem with where tags mount, so I may end up doing a lay flat on mine right there. Again, personal preference. So while we're talking about that, let's talk about this exhaust, because I get it. I'm not a fan of it either, but once again, it's something that I changed. So I think Buell may have some offerings for this, and I know some of the aftermarket companies will have some really, really good stuff. I want you guys to hear this bike with the race exhaust because it sounds really, really good. And then with some of the other options that I've seen, they kind of stop here, so it keeps the back of the bike really clean. Let me throw up a picture right quick. This is when I had the exhaust off. The back of the bike looks so much better. And then you can also get rid of this bracket if you don't have this, which I think will be important to be able to add saddlebags to this bike, something that you're gonna need if you're going any kind of distance. I don't wanna add anything big. And I know Buell has been working on stuff, but the last time I talked to them about that, I don't think it was final quite yet. So as soon as I have an update on that, I'll give you guys the update. Let's put this thing in the air really quickly before we wrap this video up, and I'll kind of show you the engine and all that stuff up close. Okay, I feel like this is a much better height to kind of look at this, and all I'm trying to accomplish with this portion of the video is to kind of let you see, for those that work on your own stuff, kind of how everything is laid out. Sometimes engineers don't make the best decisions as far as where to put things and how hard things are to take apart, etc. I feel like the Buell is pretty open, pretty exposed, really easy to get to pretty much all the major components that you would need to get to, really easy to take things off. So far, everything I've messed with, metric fasteners, so I would assume same throughout the whole bike. Also a good chance for us to check out these controls. So these are really, really nice controls. I like these pegs. After some time on it, I like the position of everything. One thing that does kind of take some getting used to is the angle of that shifter. Every time I've gotten on this bike, now I'm kind of warming up to it, but in the past, every time I would jump on it, it was just kind of hard to find the shifter. And I know it doesn't look like much here. I'm gonna take my take my boot off, so you think like, okay, you're riding the bike, your feet are kind of like that. You can see your shifter here, so the angle for the shift is something like that. So maybe for sport bike guys, people that are normally riding rear sets and stuff, that may not be as awkward, but for us cruiser guys, it's just, you kind of got to dig. And once again, 10 minutes on the bike, 15 minutes on the bike, you do get used to it. So I'll give you guys one final walk around, let you see this bike in all of its glory. And I've said it before, but for those that haven't seen this video, I'll go ahead and say it again. This bike was everything that we had hoped that it would be. I know I had very high expectations. When I heard about it, then I saw what Roland had done with it. I'm a big, big fan of his work, so I felt like it was going to be good, but you just never know. If I had to describe riding it, it's a sport bike platform, but set up as a cruiser. So what I mean by that, you're cruising in third. If you want to drop it down to second and hammer the throttle, you can stand this thing up. It handles amazing in the curves, 475 pounds. This is just an amazing machine. That's going to be it for this one, guys. Like I said, feel free to load me up with questions, everything you want to know about this bike. But I also want to know if you've done the deposit to lock your Buell in. If you haven't, what are your reservations? Do you plan to? Do you feel like it's overpriced, underpriced? I want to know your guys' opinion on it, just like I'm giving you mine. So like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.